Welcome again to another episode of the Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality Podcast, brought to you by Vaughn Custom Sports. Today we're going to talk about something that really doesn't just affect your hockey, it affects your whole life. It's this idea of how incredibly important your identity is. It's bigger than you think. But before we start, we're going to go to your questions. Just like everything else, we want to do things that are customized to you. And we've had some great questions. And can you start us off, Natalie?
Yeah, let's get into our question and answer segment brought to you by me, Natalie Ferentz. So our first question reads, how can I improve my ability to read plays faster?
First off, be a student of your game, of your position in the game. And something that I was did as a kid was just watch hockey. And I was fortunate I grew up when the Red Wings were one of the best teams in the league, if not the best. So it was easy to watch. So it was just a nightly activity where just watching some sort of hockey, whether it be NHL or college. So that I started to watch it, learn a little bit. But then secondly, and this is unique for athletes, I played my sport, but I played another position. I'd go out and play street hockey as a forward. So I would see how you score goals. Or I'd go in the basement and play mini sticks, and I'd be just overall playing the sport, but don't always play your position is one good recommendation, is then you can start to see how the game really develops from another eye, and then you pick up some IQ from it.
Yeah, I think on the mental performance side, I hear all the time about people who can't even imagine anticipating a play because they're so tied up. They've got stuff they're worried about. So for me, it's really, really clear. Before you're on the ice, make a decision the moment you put your foot on the ice, the moment your ice and the blade make contact. Absolutely. It's about just doing your job. And if you get into that mentality where you really have decided, I'm turning the switch on and I'm going to be there, that ups your chance to minimize the distractions. The distractions are the killer.
Yeah, awesome answers, guys. So the second question reads, how do I define my success when I'm not playing on the team that I want to be on?
I coined that phrasing, dominate your current level. And I've had that question come up before. Like, if I'm not at the highest level of my certain age, what does it mean to dominate? Well, really, what it means is if you're on a good team, like a really solid team at your competitive level, whether it's tier 2 or tier 3, you should be carrying the load of work. Like you should be noticeably comfortable at times at that level. So even if your team isn't a first place team, if you're kind of on a middle of the pack team, you should be that highest impact player on that team. And if you're not there, that means you're not quite at that phrasing of dominating. But also that means that you're also a good teammate. You're pulling your teammates to be their best. Like you're doing things that the average player wouldn't do. You're really taking charge at your level.
I would say if this is your last team, if this is the end of your career, maybe it's high school and you're just bummed out because you're on a team you really don't like, maybe that's sad. Maybe it was just about being on a winning team. But for almost everybody else in hockey, it's about trying to get to some extra level and moving up. So for the people who are kind of camped out there on a team in your last year and you feel bad, you can't really do a lot about that, but you can enjoy the time. But on the other side, on the fully competitive level, trying to get to the next level, the way to do this is to realize that these scouts who are watching you, these teams, these prep schools, whoever they are looking at you, they don't care whether your team wins. They care who's outstanding on the ice, who's doing amazing things. And that can happen even when you're getting your butt kicked 10-0. And it happens. You'll have guys who will be watching a game because they came out to watch, let's say, the number 1 team in the country, and you're the number 62nd team in the country, and you're just getting killed. If you are doing your best on the ice, you're back checking, you're intense, you're fighting, you're doing everything that you can do, that stands out on the ice in the last 2 minutes in a 10-0 game. And people are like, man, why is that guy like that? Why is that girl like that? You can stand out. You can be somebody who people see as an asset if you give everything despite the circumstances.
Beautiful. Well, we love answering the questions that you guys give us. And if you would like to leave us a question, please visit our website, dialedandrivenmentality.com. And you can leave us a question there if you want to remain anonymous. Or if you would not like to remain anonymous, you can DM us on Instagram at dialedandriven. Now, introducing our segment that we just started last week, we bring up 2 athletes in our Dialed In Athlete segment, where we believe is just high achieving in their respected sport and level. So today, Jeff, please start us out with our first athlete.
Dialed In Athlete, someone who really, this athlete is kind of going to be a topic of what we're going to talk about today. Jordan Faison. He's a wide receiver at Notre Dame. I'm a little bit of a college football fan, but not like diehard. And this name came across, so I kind of heard his story a little bit. He was a multi-sport athlete going into college. So he was a dominant lacrosse player and a walk-on in football. And then his freshman year, some injuries occurred. He started to get more time as a wide receiver, and then he was the MVP of their bowl game his freshman year. Sophomore year rolls around, he gets a little bit better. And sophomore year as lacrosse player, his team wins a national championship. So he's kind of the dominant lacrosse player. Last year was his junior year. This past year, he led their team in receiving yards and receptions and is now kind of a high pick or a high potential pick in the NFL draft. So now he's ending up stopping his lacrosse career to pursue football, which was 2 years ago just his secondary sport. So Jordan Faison was my dialed-in athlete, and the interesting part is that his brother is also a stud multi-sport athlete. He's the number one recruit in the country for lacrosse, and then he'll be kind of a lower football player. So kind of a similar story. His brother's going to Notre Dame now and going to maybe repeat the same story.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's awesome. I mean, look at this. Like, how much adversity is there in that path, right? There's so many reasons why things shouldn't have worked out the way they worked. And somebody just keeping having a vision and just fighting back. That's the answer all the time. It's awesome.
Yeah. So our second athlete I'm going to bring up, his name is Dan Carney. Most people probably have not heard of him, but I happened to come across his story, keeping on the Olympic path, as I had one last week as well. But Dan is the oldest competitor at the U.S. Olympic speed skating trials. And if you guys want to guess his age, how old do we think he is?
Usually teenagers, aren't they?
Yeah, it's usually teenagers or young, early 20s.
Yeah, he's the oldest. What do you guys think?
We don't know.
No? All right. Well, he's 60 years old, and he is...
What?
He is 60 years old, and he just competed at the U.S. Olympic speed skating trials, and he's from Wisconsin. And he made headlines as being the oldest person to ever compete in the U.S. Olympic speed skating trials. And fun fact, he does hold the national and world record for his age group in the 500 meter and the 1,000 meter speed skate.
I've got to work out more.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, it's insane.
Isn't that wild?
It is.
So I just thought it was a really cool story to bring up because age does not matter. And if there's a will, there is a way.
Yeah, dreams don't die. You can keep reestablishing them. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love it. He probably has a strong left leg. All you do is turn hard on the left.
Yeah, so that concludes our Dialed In Athlete segment, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the episode. Now, here's an ad from our sponsor.
If you only train your body, you're leaving your biggest advantage untrained. You physically train hard, you care, you want it, but confidence disappears after one mistake, one bad goal, one tough practice. This is Jeff Lerg from the Dialed and Driven Mentality Podcast. Here's the truth, most athletes never get taught. Your mindset isn't something you hope shows up, it's something you train. That's why we built the Dialed and Driven Success Formula. It's a step-by-step mentality building system that teaches you how to reset faster, stay locked in, and compete with confidence, no matter what just happened. This isn't hype. It's structure, habits, and mental reps that actually translate to performance. If you're tired of letting your emotions control your game, go to dialedandrivenmentality.com and start building the mentality that separates serious athletes from everyone else. Stop hoping. Start training your mindset.
So we introduced this with the idea of identity, and I want you to hear identity in a different way. You've heard it in different ways in your life, but really, really think about this for a second. Identity is who you are. Not just one thing, but a bunch of things. You're all kinds of things. You're a kid. You're a teenager. You're an adult. You play this. You're a friend to your dog. You're a grandson. You're an uncle. Whatever things. You're all these things. And one giant problem that comes up all the time, one of the reasons I have a job is because I talk to a couple hundred people a year who are at something where they've hit their head, something where it sucks so bad that things aren't working. They can't even keep their head straight. They're gripping the stick too tight on the ice. And it's so hard because they feel like if they're getting sat or they're getting skipped over or they're not even dressing for a game, whatever that thing is, or they're not scoring as much as they wanted, or they're not getting the looks they want from whatever teams they have, all of this stuff sends them into a spiral, which is understandable because they want it so bad. They want to be good so bad. It sends them into a spiral because they think that if I don't succeed here, then what was it all for? If I'm not good, then what is it all for? I'm a hockey player since I was 2 years old. It's not something I do. I am a hockey player. It is my identity. And it's so common, but it's so unhealthy because if you are only one thing, then what happens when that one thing no longer exists? You feel like you're nothing. And I've told you before, I've got a couple of former NHL guys who I still talk to, and it's usually at 1 a.m, usually when they're all alone with their thoughts, and they're not feeling so good because they missed the game. And it's all they ever thought they were, and they never made peace with it. So establishing your identity is a giant thing. Jeff, you want to talk some on this?
Yeah, especially to our youth athletes nowadays, there's just so many training offerings that you might only feel that you are a hockey player or a basketball player or soccer player because you go to some prestigious academy and that's all they do there is hockey, hockey, hockey. And then you don't have that skill set or that identity in any other part of the world. And so when things aren't going well, that's the only thing you know. And so you're right. It's the identity is who you believe you are and what you believe you can do. And from that comes your standards. Your identity drives your standards, which is your operational code of conduct. Like what you do on the day-to-day, the behavior you perform on the day-to-day is your standards. And that's why this is a relevant topic because we can't just put ourselves into one bucket and let that identity drive your standards. You have to become so much more than that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And just even look at that identity driving your standards. If you thought you were just a hockey player, then one of your standards would be, I'm going to be relentless in the gym. I'm going to be relentless here, relentless there. I'm going to make sure that all my meals are good. I'm going to make sure that all my sleep is good. But what happens if you are so driven in every moment of consciousness in your day that all you're thinking about is what can help this sport, what can help this sport, what can help this sport? And you would think that more makes sense. And we see that, but we see people get burned out. You've had 10-year-old kids at a morning skate with you, which should be fun, and they're just, because, man, they're doing everything. And I remember talking about a guy earlier in our episodes where there was a guy who had his kid 8 hours on the ice every Saturday. 8 hours for a kid who's 11 years old on the ice. It's borderline child abuse. It's incredible when you spend too much time focused on something. You lose the balance. You lose the joy. So deciding what is your identity? What is the all of you? Are you a person who enjoys this and you do this? Or are you part fisherman? Are you part skateboarder? Are you part friend to your buddies? Are you somebody who collects things, whatever the things are, along with being hockey? Then you have all these little parts of your life that, believe it or not, when you're off the ice, these other things make you feel alive. They bring you energy. They bring you joy. And that helps go right back in to be even more insane on the ice.
Let's just look at who I brought up earlier, this Jordan Faison. He's a wide receiver at Notre Dame right now. Is his identity. When he came into college 2 years ago, he was a stud lacrosse recruit. So his identity wasn't just a one thing. His identity was based off being a high performer, high achiever in everything that he did. I mean, he goes to Notre Dame. So, of course, there has to be an educational component there, too. So you look at that, and the identity comes from just your overall life experience with what you're exposed to. And we've had chats before and talked to many of our guests, talk about how they've had long-term paths of development with the variety of guests we've had. And one of the core topics is they're playing other sports. Like your mind and your body get put into different scenarios with other activities. So you aren't just this. And at the end of the day, your standard could be that you demand your best in everything that you do. And I know for me, it just organically happened, maybe just through the stressful life of being a goaltender. As a sophomore in college, I started my business, which I'm still operating today, 20 years later, which is my goalie coaching, and now it's evolved into a mentoring services business. But I remember as I was going through my college days and in the summer and then into the minor pro ranks, you're at the rink for so long, I couldn't wait to get home and check my email to see if any parent was reaching out about my brand new goalie camp. But it just took my mind somewhere else, and I started to form another piece of my identity.
Yeah, no, it makes so much sense. If you look at how people go through things, I mean, you're starting hockey as 2 years old, 3 years old, and life's magical. And while your brain's forming, it's so easy to just think you're that. And just to be clear, the average NHL career is about 6 years. And if it's going to be 6 years, then for sure there's a great likelihood that if you made it, that somewhere in your 30s, it's probably going to be over. And people live to 75, 80. What are you for your whole life? And I promise you it's fuel for all of that. But you talked about this idea that identity drives standards, and then the standards really demand habits to follow them up. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, the habits are just these automated routines that really reinforce your standards. It's those things that you don't even think about. They just happen automatically. Yep, I get up on my first alarm. I have a good breakfast. I get dressed quick. I go to the gym and I work my butt off. Like, those are just the things that they're so automatic you don't think about them. And we've had chats before on how do you develop these habits. We've given out our guide, our 5 champion habits guide, just to give some guidelines. But that's where a habit becomes a habit. It used to be science showed 21 days. Now it's upwards of almost 70 days that more research has shown. Like, it's just doing it over and over and over until it gets ingrained in your DNA. But that's how important they are. And that's why surrounding yourself with others like-minded, just like you, that'll push you in the right direction becomes so important, because it's not easy to establish something for 70 days in a row if you're not in a great environment that'll support that. So that's why, as our youth athletes, we always, we keep hammering the drum of play other sports, get exposed to other types of lifestyles, choose those people who are going to push you in the right direction, be coachable, keep learning, all those little things that come along the way. They're going to help you mold your identity, and they're going to help you sustain that high level standard with what your behavior is, with what your behavior is that kind of drives who you are.
So let's say you think you are a hockey player. Let's say you think you are a goalie. You've had it cemented for years. It's hard to change that habit, right? It's hard to really change this. Let me tell you this thing that I don't love telling, but it's the truth. I never really wanted to be anything specifically until the end of my running career. I ran to pay for college. I was a poor kid who the money helped have been a scholarship to college. I loved being on the team. That part was awesome. And I loved racing, but I didn't particularly love running. But it wound up opening these really cool doors. And I wound up getting sponsored by Nike, and then I wound up working for Nike. I was a rep in North Florida. It was a great job. And I was one of these psychos about Nike. I just loved the whole lore of the whole thing. And I kept sending these shoe designs to Tinker Hatfield, this guy he's the most iconic sports footwear designer in history. And he makes some of the coolest stuff. And he actually answered one of my letters. I sent him this sock liner thing, and he loved it. And he gave me an interview for a footwear position to come out to Oregon. So here I am, 23 years old, and like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I've got this chance. And I fly out to Oregon. I'm just so excited. I've got a handmade shoe, literally handmade a shoe to show this system I created. And Tinker puts it on his foot. He likes it. I'm like, yes, this is great. I'm going to get this job. I wanted it so bad. There were months of thinking about this. And the two guys who were also part of the decision making, they're business guys. And they knew that I did not have a design background. I hadn't gone to design school, and I didn't get the job because they're right. I didn't have a background. I just had kind of raw desire for it and kind of primitive abilities. It was devastating. I put everything into that. I thought that's what I was going to be. And I'd say it probably took 6 months for me to reset. So if you're in a position where you're stuck, if you're in a position where you feel like this is all you are and things aren't going so well, I want to promise you, you can change your life and change your energy about being a hockey player by looking at all the other things you are. We talked about Natalie earlier before the recording, and Natalie is one of these people who's insanely full of energy and driven and focused, but she's also a person who's kind of chill. And I don't really understand how those two things go together. But she told me that one of the things she did in her career is that she had a dog that she loved, and she was into dog training. So she'd spend hours training her dog after she was at the rink. So she was two things at least. And being two things is way more stable than being one thing. And she's lots of other things. You're a friend. You're somebody who maybe likes doing this or doing that. Try to find a way to figure out what you are. Try to find the things you want to accomplish in your life. Try to figure out what your identity is, because in the end, had I had an identity of this is something I'm going to try to do, and I'm also going to try to do this and do that, I would have felt better. But it took about 6 months for me to get out of that hole. And then I started realizing that I loved coaching, and I went down that path, and that opened all these other things. You're going to be a lot of things in your life. I want you to give everything to hockey as long as you want to. Jeff wants the same thing. That's why we do this. But I want you to be happy. And there's a chance of that if you realize you're way more than just whatever you're doing in this moment.
Yeah, and to that point, I think the NCAA has it right with student athlete. And as much as the athletes that go there don't really feel that student vibe all the time, they're more athlete first, and they want the best facilities and best coaches and best team in the country, and then kind of many of them put student second. I think that's the right blend, though. You have to be both. There's a real balance between both, where there's a certain part of your time in your brain that puts all their effort and attention to one aspect, but you can still do just as good in the other, but you have to know how to find that balance. And then when you're all in on one, be all in. Demand excellence in everything that you do. That's the best advice that we can give, is find that balance to be all in, but demand excellence in everything. You can't just be a one-trick pony. One of the coolest things I saw recently was a minor pro hockey player who's over playing in Europe. And in Europe, they're known to have kind of these rowdy fans and drums beaten, and especially in the minor pro ranks there. And I saw the coolest thing, this player, he was in the English Pro League, kind of a similar level to what I played over in Europe. And after the game, I saw this video. He must be a musician trying to kind of make it. So I think they helped him put on a show. He was there after a game, fully dressed in his gear, at center ice with a guitar, mic, everything. Both teams are standing on the bench respectfully. The crowd's there in awe, and he's just playing a song and singing. It was the coolest thing, because I could appreciate that stage of life where you're making minor pro hockey money, but it just was very clear to see he put his downtime into pursuing another path in music. And it's pretty cool to see. You hope people like that can find a way to break through one day. So anyways, I saw that clip. I thought it'd be something relevant to bring up, because that's exactly what we're talking about here. Try to do your best in everything that you do.
So before I really wrap this up, I just want to remind you that there are people who've been incredibly successful in hockey, and when it's over, they're lost. And I understand that, because you spent your whole time in this thing and it's so intoxicatingly amazing. Don't let that happen to you. You have this chance to have an amazing time in hockey, an amazing time in your life. And whether it's training dogs or riding motocross bikes or whatever the things are, maybe you're into video games, whatever the things are, find some way to have an entire life. This is yours. It's a gift. The whole thing is a gift. You can have whatever you want. And I know sometimes it doesn't feel like a gift because you're sitting on the bench going, man, why isn't the coach playing me? But I promise you there's more than that. Jeff talked about this idea that your identity drives your standards, and your standards go right into your habits, and then it comes right back and reinforces this idea that your identity is this thing that you keep making all the time. It's what you're aware of. It's what you think you are. So please, here's your chance, among other things we talk about. Figure out who you are. It's not so easy. And by the way, if you're under the age of 25, your brain's still developing, figuring out who you are. So take a step. Take, 30 seconds a day. What am I and what do I care about? Or you can do it before you go to bed at night. What do I really want in my life? It'll make hockey better, I promise. Jeff, you want to take us out?
Yeah, and at the end of the day, just if you aren't quite sure yet what that final answer is, because there doesn't need to be a final answer, just demand your best in everything that you do. That'll help you solve where you want to spend your time. And that's really where just organically I was able to learn from others who've been before me. I could just see people giving their best effort, and it's like, wow, they're successful. It looks like they're working really hard. I guess that's what it takes. So by all means, you don't have to have an answer, but just demand the best in everything that you do. And remember, just keep staying dialed and staying driven on your goals, as that's the only way to accomplish success. And for those of you that have enjoyed our content, we'd love if you took a moment, give us a review, visit our new website, dialedandrivenmentality.com. We've also put together a free newsletter that each of you can sign up for, and we're hopeful to continue to build this dialed and driven community, because at the end of the day, success in sports comes from the mind, not just the physical aspects. So we'll chat with you next week. Stay dialed and driven.